What we're simulating is a Category 3 hurricane that has originated off the coast of Africa.
It's a hurricane that's going to impact both of Region 2's OCONUS areas of responsibility, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico.
We need to get to Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands in advance of the storm.
We have 12 hours to get in place any place we go.
We need to deploy very quickly, but 12 hours from the time we're notified, we need to be in the air and headed out. In the case of this exercise, we're looking at a situation where we'd have to deploy to a location like Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands, and airport access might be limited, and we would rely on military transportation to get us there because it would be the only thing that could support both our personnel and equipment. After we have mission assigned the Department of Defense for military airlift, is that they'll then notify us exactly where we're going to need to report with the team to meet our military transportation. For Region 3, typically we would normally fly out of Joint Base Dix-McGuire-Lakehurst, and they would tell us when we needed to be here, what we needed to bring, and any constraints or limitations that we might need to know before we departed the regional office or our rallying point.
One's began and the other's not.
Once the team is activated, regardless of the mode of transportation, we will assemble. A situation briefing will be provided to make sure that all team members are aware of the circumstances of the incident that we're responding to. And we'll then conduct operational checks on our equipment. Because if we're on our way to a distant destination, let's say Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands, we don't want to get there and find out that our computers or Blackberries or other systems don't work.
There we go. Ready? Yep.
We're required to bring X amount of gear with us.
You're going to want to, you can actually pull this out. If you want to pull this out to the edge, that's fine, because you can
What's
always
the
fill
best way to
this in with
configure
filler.
that gear? What's the best way to provide it to them? What's the best packaging for that gear so that it can be quickly
Top
palletized?
net has rings on it that hook to the rings on the pallet. Actually, hooks that hook to the rings on the pallet. You can tell because one side has 5 rings, or one side has 6 rings.
It's up to us to help the military help us. So if we know what in fact the requirements are, we practice those requirements. A, they get used to handling our gear, which is packaged somewhat differently than their own. And B, we know how to best configure that to best meet their expectations and requirements.
I think it's important for the FEMA team to have the knowledge on how to prepare their equipment properly, whether it be a pallet or a vehicle, because airlift is inherently dangerous in the process. If the airplane could be out of balance, it would have to divert because it would be using more fuel by not having the load properly balanced inside the airplane. It could have a catastrophic effect on the airplane if it wasn't balanced and marked properly.
Make sure all the equipment you have is undamaged. Make sure that it is, make sure if you have any flammables, any liquids like that, make sure stuff isn't leaking, because all that does, that slows up the process once you guys bring it to us or whoever's gonna inspect your cargo. If everything's broke and neat, then all you're doing is you're keeping you guys from getting to where you need to go.
What we're doing is we're inspecting, making sure that we know what type of hazards each vehicle has that we're inspecting, or each piece of cargo. It has to be certified on the shipper's decks. So what we're doing is checking quantities of the hazards on the shipper's deck, make sure it's all certified. What's important is because the load masters have to know what type of hazards are on their aircraft in case there's fire, in case there's jettison purposes.
Like I said, I'm Sergeant Jones. I'm going to show you guys how to properly weigh and mark a vehicle for air shipment.
It's an added level of complexity in that typically if we're going to be using the military to move us, we're moving a lot of equipment with us. And there are a significant number of rules and regulations relative to the movement of that equipment.
We then will proceed through a passenger manifesting process that's not unlike actually getting on a commercial airliner at a facility like Fort Dix or McGuire Air Force Base. All of our names and social security numbers are included on manifest. That's for personnel accountability, so they know exactly who's on the aircraft. We then check in at the passenger terminal, and the check-in not only includes checking our identification against the manifest, but each individual is weighed, so they know exactly what the passenger weight is and the weight of our carry-on baggage. And so that's so they can properly balance the aircraft and make sure that the aircraft isn't overloaded. Once we arrive at the airfield, we're really under the control of the Air Force. They're going to tell us where to go, how they want the cargo loaded, because it is their aircraft and we need to make sure that we're following their procedures and everything is being done safely.
Just be safe. We'll take everything nice and slow. We'll bring it up on the ramp.
Then we'll bring it up probably up to the middle of the cargo compartment, stop it, tie it down. You'll kill the engine. We'll strap it, and then once the packs get out here.
So after the manifesting process, we then move out and we load the aircraft. In most cases, our equipment is already on board the aircraft, and we take our instructions from the Air Force loadmasters that are responsible for the safe operation of the airplane. They give us the standard pre-flight safety briefings, again, not unlike a commercial airline briefing, but it's particularly the special features of a military aircraft, which are kind of different from a civilian airliner. They're making sure that we can travel safely, and that we understand emergency instructions in the event that something should happen on the aircraft.
They're simulating as closely as this would be to an actual flight, like an actual deployment, without leaving the ground. That is possible. So, wonderful.
Are there any questions that you may have for us? Once again, we thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoy the flight. Have a good day.
It's important that we work with the military whenever we can, because often they are best, if last, method. So the more we practice with them, the better we get with them, the more we understand their policies and procedures.
We can't do it alone in FEMA. We rely on our partners elsewhere in the federal government, including the Department of Defense, for their types of resources to get us into the most difficult types of environments, to be there to support us and work with us so that we can collectively go out there and help disaster survivors. FEMA is just one part of the team, and this is an example of how DoD and others are members of the team as well.